How's it going, y'all? Welcome back. My name is Jared Atal. I'm a mixing engineer here in Nashville, Tennessee. I just wanted to hop on here. Feel like I've made a pretty decent discovery for myself. I've been using Slate Trigger for years and apparently haven't been using it to its fullest potential. And when I started doing it, it's because I recognized that the thing that I hate about Trigger is it's just kind of inconsistent. Like when I'm doing post-production, I prefer Superior Drummer. I just like the workflow better on that. I like the sounds better on that. And Trigger is just usually something I've stuck to for like this live broadcast thing because I can't use Superior in that way. So Trigger sometimes has like a super aggressive attack and sometimes it doesn't. And of course that's based on the velocity of the input, but I want it to be a little more consistent. I've tried everything from like compressing it harder on the way in so it gets a little more consistent level before it hits the trigger and everything else like that, but I'm still not quite able to get it. And then the other problem you deal with is, especially live, dancing with the huge dynamics of a live performance. You got to kind of like on this Trigger plugin, you got to deal with finding the right balance of this detail where it's not triggering on like snares or toms, it's only triggering on the kick drum and stuff. And I have a workaround again in post-production, but live it can be tricky. So I am utilizing it, as you can see here. Also, this song is so good. It's by Zeal Church. It's an original, pretty rad song. But here on this, I'm going to solo the drums up. You can see I'm probably catching some stuff that's not kick drum here. Let's solo it and see. And you'll also be able to hear what I'm talking about here. I'm going to turn these groups on. Yeah, this lower stuff that Tom is triggering it, which is pretty low and pretty subtle. So in the context of things, it's not going to be a big deal. But I would love it to be more accurate than that. But in order to get it to actually trigger like harder kicks like that, I have to have the detail set that low. So and same thing on this kick drum. Snare drum's a lot easier because it's a super dynamic and it's like a lot more high end and some reason it triggers better. It's not, the microphone's not as close to like the floor tom and kind of in the same frequency area as a kick and floor are so related, but for the snare drum it picks up easier, but it's still not great for like some of the ghost notes and all that kind of stuff. I wish I could have this detail set lower and get it to trigger accurately. Again, here's how it sounded before. I'm gonna keep it in the mix here. I'm gonna go to where this is. There'll never be another. There is just one name. Jesus, sing that again, sing that out. Never be alone. You won't make never be alone. Okay, pretty good. Here's the new way that I'm doing it. Never be another. There is just one name. Jesus, sing that again, sing that out. Never be alone. You won't make never be alone. Brings you every change. I think that's pretty massive. Like I'm just getting way more consistent on the kick drum and my snare drum, and you can see it's like even in the meters it's not triggering on some of those toms. So I just am getting a much more consistent picture, and it's all about this suppress knob right here. And I've never used it, didn't know what it's about. I'm probably late to the game. This plugin's been out for forever, but I was looking into it and it's great, and I just figured I wanted to share the knowledge with y'all. So this suppress function, what I can do is I have two inputs here, a blue and a red. And the red is, I can tell it to ignore triggers, and the blue is what I want it to trigger. So essentially how it's set up is if I send like my kick drum to the left side of this plugin, that's the trigger side. So anything that I send to the left, it will trigger that sound. And everything I send to the right, it will ignore that sound. This is insane because I can send my floor tom to the right and it will ignore all of those triggers and not be confused by it. Then I can set my detail much lower at 6 and then it looks like this when it's going. Never be enough. hitting together, it still triggers them both beautifully. So how I set that up is normally what I would do on this is I set it up to be a mono track. I just duplicate my kick in. This is the old way. I duplicate my kick in, and then I just put a mono to stereo version of trigger on it, and that's how I get it. This new way takes a little bit of a different setup. You're gonna create a new aux channel, and we'll create it. I want it to be stereo, and then this way I can make a bus, and I can call it Slate Kick, and this is a stereo input. Now what I can do is from like my kick channel or something, I can send to Slate Kick, and then I'm going to pan what I want all the way. I need to turn the follow main pan off. I'm going to pan what I want all the way left, and then I'm going to duplicate. You need to turn it up, and then I'm going to duplicate this to my snare, and I'm going to turn this all the way right. I also like to do this pre-fader so none of my faders affect it. So then I'm going to put the right on every channel that I don't want triggering it. So I don't want my snare to trigger it, and I don't want my toms, both of them, to trigger it. Now it's going to ignore all of those when it comes to this. And then I'm going to jump over here because that's where I'm doing it here. On my trigger plugin, I'm just going to turn the suppress all the way up to 100%. And then you'll see it coming through and ignoring stuff. I have that set up on different channels, so I'm going to just blank these out here. But then you'll see it happening here. Perfect. And it's going to be the same on my snare drum. I just create, a stereo aux. We'll title it Slate Snare. And then I'm going to send my kick drum to my snare, Slate Snare. I'm going to take it off this, and I'm going to go right because I don't want it triggering on kick drums. And then I'm also going to do, nope, not that. I'm going to do pre-fader send, and then I'm going to put it on my kick drum, and I'm going to put my snare drum, and I'm going to put my snare drum all the way left because this is for a snare trigger. And then I'm going to put this on my toms all the way to the right, on this all the way to the right, and then we're good to go. And now, like I said, I have this set up elsewhere in my scene, but now so all of those reds, it's just ignoring that, and makes a massive difference on how it's triggering. And then being able to take that detail even lower, I can pick up the ghost notes on my snare. All of the velocity is much more accurate, and I'm just getting a much more consistent trigger that way. So that's how you set that up. Now, my toms, I'm not triggering my toms. Personally, finding tom triggers is really hard. Each drummer is like tuning their drum different, so then I'd have to like tune my triggers every single time, and that's just like a pain. Now, I do that in post-production for sure, but I just don't have enough time. So, and I feel like I get a decent enough tom sound without triggers. It would be better, but I'm just a nut about them being in tune. So, but I was wondering if I could use the gate on trigger and do the same thing, not let like a snare drum trigger my gate to open. Because on my old way, just using like the SSL channel gate, never be another. There is just one name, Jesus. Sing that again, sing that out. Never be a moment you won't be. These things are just open, and sometimes it's open because I can't really specify, some of the lower notes. If I set it low enough for the lower notes to open it up, then the snare drum's going to open it up. And especially when the drums are in a cage, you're triggering these gates pretty bad. So what I did is, so listen to these toms in this version. Never be another. There is just one name, Jesus. Sing that again, sing that out. And great, I mean, certainly usable. I love it. This is the new gated version. Never be another. There is just one name, Jesus. Sing that again, sing that out. Never be a moment you won't make. Never be That's pretty crazy. It's awesome. It doesn't ever open when it's not supposed to. And I set it up the same way. I'm just going to send things that I want to trigger it. So I'm going to send my toms to this, and I want it to trigger. I'm going to send my tom 1 on the left, my tom 2 on the right, and then vice versa on that. So I'll show you where I'm doing that here. I have, because I'm doing this in post-production, not live, I'm sending it from here. So on my snare top, I send it to my my kick. These are going to the right. You can see tom 2 right. And then same thing here, tom 2 right, tom 1 right. That's on my snare and my kick, so it's not triggering it. And then on my tom, my actual tom tracks, I'm sending those to the left. Right here you can see it. It's to the left here. Tom left. And then in trigger 2, I turn the suppress all the way up. And then again, I can mess with this detail as far as where it's going to trigger and the sensitivity. That'll affect my gate. So I'm going to go onto the floor tom here. If I set the detail all the way up. You see, it's never opening. And so if I set it all the way down. Let's listen to my drums soloed here. Just get much more consistent punch out of those samples on that, and it's awesome. It cleans these up a lot. Now, I think that gate is too aggressive to use in like a post-production sense where I would be like really cleaning these drums up for release. But as far as the live broadcast sense, man, that takes me a long way and much, much more accurate than my SSL gates, and it's awesome. But yeah, check it out. Let me know if you use Slate Trigger this way, and let me know how late to the game I am, because I'm probably pretty late. But yeah, let me know what you think. We'll talk soon. There is just one name, Jesus. Sing that again, sing that out. Never be a moment you won't make a way. Never be a moment breaks you every chain. Never be another. There is just one name, Jesus. There will never be a moment you won't make a way. Never be a love that breaks through every chain. Never be another. There is just one name, Jesus, Jesus. Such a great song. We'll see you next time.